Hi everyone, Lisa Kauk here, dietitian from bariatricsurgerynutrition.com. So in this segment, we're going to be looking at meal replacements versus protein shakes. I often see my patients misuse them. Oftentimes when someone skips a meal or skips a snack, I find people tend to go for protein shakes as a meal replacement, and it's not being quite used in the right way. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So let me start off with the difference between a meal replacement versus a protein shake. So I have two examples here, and I just want to remind you that I'm not promoting any particular products. I don't work for any of these companies, so just a small disclaimer, but I just want to show you some examples that you might be more familiar with. So I have Boost Diabetic over here, so that's one of these, one meal replacement, and Glucerna, which is the diabetic version of Ensure, for example. So meal replacements are something that are very easy to find in pharmacies in particular. And what makes a meal replacement what it is that it accounts for the protein, carbohydrates, and the fat that you would typically have in a normal meal. So if I'm going to use an example of having chicken, rice, and broccoli for dinner, essentially it's supposed to have a similar nutrition profile. Okay, so it includes the protein, but not just that, including the carb and the fat as well. And of course, a variety of certain vitamins and minerals that you would typically find in an average meal. So that's what a meal replacement really is. And the fact that there's carbohydrates in here is not a bad thing. Meal replacements have carbohydrates just like an average meal might have. So I know that some people tend to really just focus on the protein, which is very important after bariatric surgery. So I don't want to, create any misunderstandings. Protein is important. With this small stomach that you have after surgery, we do have to focus on the protein as the main priority. However, a topic that's maybe less discussed after bariatric surgery is that carbohydrates need to make their way back into the diet. It might be a little bit hard to do in the first few weeks or few months after surgery, but over time it's something that we do need to kind of pay a bit more attention to. And the importance of carbohydrates is, number one, to stabilize your blood sugar, because where there is a fluctuating blood sugar, primarily that it's dropping, that your blood sugar drops out today because you're not getting enough carbs, there tends to be cravings that come along with that. So we kind of get these sugar rushes that can happen as a result of a poorly controlled blood sugar. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is for energy. Although we burn calories, which is essentially using your energy, the source of the calories are important as well. So protein is a source of energy. However, the body is primarily built or created to focus more so on the carbohydrates as a source of energy. So some people who have a very high protein diet, very little carbohydrates, might find that their energy levels might drop throughout the day. So if that's something that you experience, you might need to be including the carb back in. And of course, everybody's a little bit different. Some people manage on their protein and they don't have as much in terms of carbs in their diet, and they're functioning well. So again, to each their own, but generally speaking, the majority of people probably do need to have some kind of carb in their day, which is hard to do when you have such a small stomach, and again, the focus is on the protein. So meal replacements are just that. They have carbohydrates as well as fat, which makes up a typical standard meal. So it's a meal replacement. It's directly replacing what a meal nutritionally might otherwise be. Now, if we're looking at the protein shakes, so again, no disclaimer, I don't work for any brand and I'm not promoting any products, so I'm just showing familiar I guess, brands or products that I see a lot of people use after bariatric surgery. So there's Premier Protein. Premier Protein is a protein shake. So whether it's a ready-to-drink shake, whether it's any other brand, any other make, ready-to-drink versus powdered versions, protein shakes are essentially that. It is just a protein source. There are no carbohydrates or no fat, or extremely little amounts. So there may be about 2 to 5 grams of fat, maybe 5 grams of carb or less. So as you can see, it's a very different profile from a meal replacement that might otherwise have 20 to maybe even 30 grams of carb. It's very different. The way protein shakes are meant to be used is to increase your protein intake. Okay, so if you're not getting enough protein at all your meals and all your snacks after bariatric surgery, it's hard to eat sufficient amounts. It's hard to eat more to get the protein that you need, especially in the first few weeks or few months. So a protein shake is something you might add in addition to your meals or snacks, or it might be something that you would you would replace a snack with. So instead of having a portion of cheese as a snack, you might instead put a protein shake there just to really boost up your intake of protein. And that's how it's really meant to be used, so kind of as a supplement source and not as a meal replacement. But I often find patients doing just that, using protein shakes as a meal replacement. Now, does it really matter that much? It depends on the frequency. Okay, so if you are someone who's pretty regular with your meals, pretty regular with your snacks, and every once in a while it just so happens that you need to rush out of the house and you just can't have the lunch that you should have had or that you meant to have. Grabbing a protein shake, and doing this once a month, one meal per month, or one meal every 2 weeks, let's just say, is not a huge problem because it's not a regular thing. So it's okay. It's okay to just have a protein shake if that's really what you have on hand. However, if you're one of those people who runs out of the house in the morning very quickly to go to work and you miss your breakfast, or you often have meetings at lunchtime and you skip your lunch, or your kids in the evening time, sorry, the dog's here, or your kids might have practice in the evening time, so you often skip your supper. If that's you and if that's common, and we're talking at least 2 meals a week, if not more, then you might want to go from your replacement because it's something you're doing consistently on a regular basis. So you do need to have that carbohydrate that you might otherwise be missing on. And again, I just want to clarify, we're not talking high carbs. So to those people who kind of are getting confused about the carb content, we're talking in the 20 to 25 gram range. It's really not a high amount, but it's enough that you might need. Okay, so the average bariatric meal might honestly only really have 15 grams of carbs. So again, we're not far off from what we might expect. And I want to show you one more product because I think it's something that's been interesting and it's popping up more and more as a product. And I have one brand here again, but there's many of them and many are very similar. But this one over here is called Milk to Go Sport. So Milk to Go Sport, or products of this nature, are essentially high protein milk. Okay, so if you look at the ingredient list, milk is the first ingredient. Okay, so when I look at the nutrition content, it's actually fairly similar to a meal replacement. By no means am I saying this is a meal replacement. By definition, it is not. However, it does have 26 grams of protein, 26 grams of protein and 23 grams of carb. So again, what's interesting about this is that if you don't have the time to run into a pharmacy and grab a meal replacement, if you don't happen to have any at home and you're on the go or you work on the road or again, you're beside your office, you just may not have access to a pharmacy to get a meal replacement. So if you're really stuck, Milk to Go Sport or similar products tend to be sold at convenience stores. So corner stores, convenience stores, that's where we tend to find these kind of products in their little refrigerated section where you might find, some milk as well. This is there. Also in grocery stores, it's sold a little bit in various places, but the convenience of it is that it might be in that convenience store that's right beside your work. So again, in that respect, I think it's really interesting. So when we're looking at the carb of this, again, for those who are concerned about the source of the carbohydrates, this product in particular, I cannot speak for all products, but I invite you to take a look at them, at the ones that you might be familiar with. Milk is the first ingredient, sugar is the third ingredient. Okay, so when it comes to ingredient lists, the first ingredient that's listed is the majority of the ingredient that's being used, and the last on the ingredient list is the least of that's being added. So sugar being the third ingredient is better than other products out there because sugar tends to be the first or second ingredient in a lot of these types of drinks. So sugar is the third ingredient, meaning that the carbohydrates that we see, the 23 grams, the majority of that is coming from lactose, which is a natural sugar that's found in milk. So that's where that carbohydrate is actually coming from. There is sugar being added, but it's actually a really small amount. And as well, if you ever were to taste some of these products, you would actually notice that as well. So there's no actual artificial sweeteners used in this product. It really is, the majority of it really is from the lactose from milk. So I just want to share that with you. So to sum up, there's different products being used and they're there for different reasons, and I often find them being misused. So to replace a meal on a very regular basis, meal replacement is the way to go. If it's to increase your protein intake because you're not getting enough protein in your day, having a protein shake makes sense. And otherwise, it can be used really as a backup option, very seldom, whenever it might happen once in a while that you're stuck and you just need to have some kind of a shake. If you don't have meal replacements on hand, protein shakes are fine. So I hope you found that this segment helpful and useful to you. And if you have any other ideas of any topics that you'd like for us to discuss, just send us a message, send us an email, comment in the box below, or reach out to us through our website at bariatricsurgerynutrition.com. Thanks. See you next time.